Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Now we know that Nigeria continues to suffer from education inequity as millions of children are out of school. And it's even questionable for those who remain in school, the quality of education received. Now there's a lot that government is doing, but to solve this issue of education inequity, government alone can't do that. And that's why we have organizations like Teach for Nigeria who are deploying fellows for 2-year fellowships in underserved communities to improve educational outcomes and also create positive change as leaders. Joining us is a board member and CEO of Teach for Nigeria in the person of Ayodele Olajiga. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you, Isabella.
Now, just tell us what Teach for Nigeria is doing, like in a nutshell, for those who are unfamiliar with the work of Teach for Nigeria.
Okay, so if you think of education, there are two challenges, like you mentioned. There's access, and then there's the quality of the access. And so we work on the quality of the access. Well, our program basically, we train fellows for 2 years. We place them in underserved communities, and then they work with students on improving learning outcomes and the like. We also work with existing teachers as well. And then once they've done their 2 years, our alumni then go on, hopefully, to provide leadership in society around addressing education inequity.
So I'm going to take you back to my intro, which looked at out-of-school children, looked at the state of education in Nigeria. What are the official statistics? Because these days, depending on whether it's the World Bank or UNICEF, the data keeps fluctuating. But what we know is that Nigeria continues to top this list when it comes to out-of-school children. How would you evaluate the current education situation here in Nigeria?
Well, I think the challenge is dire. First of all, I use UNICEF, but whoever you're looking at, the number is a lot of millions. One is that 1 in 5 of out-of-school children in the world is in Nigeria. I think according to UNICEF, we're 10.5. And what that means is that you have a section of our society that are starting off life and they've got no access. And the situation is just going to get worse and the gap is going to grow. And if you want to grow a society that is competitive, a country that is growing, you need everybody to have the basics so that they can have options. Once you miss the basics, your options narrow.
Now, I know growing up, I've heard parents, people of the older generation say good things about the public school system. But now we're seeing a trend where most parents want to put their children in private schools, but not everybody can afford private school tuition. And even with the rising cost of transportation or food, petrol, we're seeing more people going back to the public schools. Now, how can those people in the public school get a good education when there's so much disparity between those private schools and public schools?
So if you want to solve problem at the individual level, private works. When you want to stop it for the country or systemic, you got to address the public school system. And so first of all, primary school education in Nigeria is free. So it's really all about working very hard to improve the quality of what our primary education is. In the underserved areas, no infrastructure, we don't have enough teachers, the quality of the teachers and the training is not where it's supposed to be. And that's where we work. And really for me, it's our alumni, we have over 1,000 of them now and it's growing, is that at some point, these change makers will overwhelm the system such that our primary, our public school systems become top of the pack again. I mean, they're never going to overtake, the private school system, but for the masses, for everyone, the public systems must work, be it transport, health, or education.
Now, some will argue that if you want to solve the problem of education in Nigeria, we need to have higher budgetary allocation. But that's something that's within the purview of the government. But what can be done now in the short term to start really raising those educational outcomes within the public education system?
Well, I think, first of all, the budget, what is allocated to it is nothing. I mean, I was in Onga, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and I heard in Syria alone, education is now 25% of the budget. Wow. And that's kind of the direction we need to go. I mean, it's 3 of them. It's education, healthcare, and food. Those 3 things, we need to raise whatever the contribution is now to maybe half of the budget. But I don't speak for government. I think, in terms of trying to solve this problem, we need to look at the primary education system, the foundation learning. Because even if we can't solve secondary school, once the foundation is right and the individual is okay, they can look after themselves. But if the foundation is off, then nothing happens.
And what are those systemic challenges that are plaguing the primary school education system? Because we have graduates who can't read and write. We have graduates who cannot take on jobs because they don't have that foundational literacy. So what needs to be done at that primary school level?
So for me, at least as I said, for me, Teach for Nigeria, we focus on numeracy, literacy, and what we call socio-emotional learning, which is around self-awareness, problem solving, all of those things that makes the individual allow you to take hold of your agency. And those three things we think are very crucial. At the moment, I think UNICEF, 70% of Nigerian kids in schools can't read properly, and maths is not where it's supposed to be. The more controversial part of it, which I ask myself, is not a Teach for Nigeria position, is in asking people to learn English before they can learn the other things like numeracy, be able to think. Is that a hindrance? Because English is a language, right? So should we be teaching people these things in their local language and then making sure they take English or whatever language is required as a second subject, rather than if you can't speak English, suddenly you're out of maths, all of those things.
So I think if the government is serious about making sure that education is accessible, then it has to take into consideration the different languages spoken before the child even gets into the formal education system. Now, I want to look at the role of the fellowship in addressing these education inequities that we see. What's interesting is that it's a leadership initiative. So let us know what the fellows do beyond just going into school to teach, because some will say NYSC already solves that. So what's different for the Teach for Nigeria Fellowship?
So they spend 2 years. So we're producing leaders who spend 2 years in an underserved community. So the first thing that happens is the empathy and the understanding of the problem. They get it. They become resilient. And then there's something they do in the fellowship, which is solve a problem in the community. So it's called the Be the Change program, right? So they're solving a problem. So when they come out after the fellowship, we then see them go on to try to address problems at a system level. So we have, for instance, in one of our alums in Ota, they have a free school, right? Which is they take kids who can't, there's no tuition. They bring them in there and they're giving them that foundational education. And it's that type of stuff that we think we're going to start to see come out of our alumni. We're hoping some of them will also go into the public sector, because you have to change the system. And because the other thing we found is there's no one single problem in education in Nigeria. It's almost different from community to community. So you can allocate more budget at the federal level, but you still got to solve it at the local government and state level.
And are there any disparities you're seeing between rural, urban, and semi-urban areas when the fellows are deployed to these underserved communities?
So what we've seen is that the kids, in terms of potential, be it rural or urban, no difference. What the issue is that in the rural areas, they don't have access to infrastructure. Some of them no electricity, no internet. So it's all about addressing the infrastructure issues, then giving them high quality teachers, and they'll compete anywhere in the world.
And these fellows, what impact do they have on their communities and even on the other teachers who are already in these schools? Are they seen as threats, or is there a complementary relationship going forward?
In the beginning, it was like, who is this? But now what we're seeing is, first of all, the fellows are learning from the existing teachers. The existing teachers are also learning from the fellows. So we're seeing that, collaboration going on. We've also then added existing teachers to our fellowship as well, so that you have that happening. Then the other thing is we've also introduced school leaders development program. So we're basically then tackling it at the leadership of the school, existing teachers, and new fellows. And so what happens is you've seen teachers where they're basically changing mindsets, because suddenly teachers are like, oh, I would like to do this stuff differently. So the application into our fellowship from existing teachers is actually quite competitive. The other bit is that they also work with parents to get them engaged in education and the like. So all of this, so in the community, any community that we're in, from the leadership of that community, that's the Oba or whoever it is, all the way down, everybody knows we're around, and the fellows are working with everybody to address, education inequity issues.
And then what are some of the measurable outcomes? Have you seen maybe improvement in literacy, numeracy? Have you seen maybe school retention figures go up, the tangibles?
Yeah, so RAND Corporations, the US, it's an independent party, looked at our program, and what we've seen is numeracy and literacy. Our kids, the TFN classrooms, are about anything between 4 to 5 months ahead of the non-TFN class. And what's then going to happen is that just starts to compound on itself. So we are at least a term ahead of the non-TFN classes, at least in numeracy and literacy.
So how are you able to fund all of this? Do you work with government? Do you work with stakeholders? And I know people are listening and saying, how can we support? So what are the avenues for that?
So we basically have 4 sources. The one is state government is crucial, because when our fellows go in, it's important that they get onto the state's payroll, because otherwise it becomes unsustainable. Then we get a lot of funding from foundations, both local and international, who support the program. Individuals can also, go on our website and set up either one-time donation or recurring donations. And then you can also in kind. So Starlink has given us internet access, which will be hopefully rolling out in Ogun State. We also there's a company called Blue Eti who's also giving us solar power as well. And finally, T.Y. Danjuma Foundation support every year, I think, the training of anything between 500 to 600 teachers as well. So everyone can get involved, everyone, and everyone should get involved.
So are there any ongoing fundraising efforts that individuals can also plug into? Because you've mentioned foundations, but you mentioned also the website. Maybe you can share details of the website and any fundraising activities going on now.
Yeah, so our website is teachfornigeria.org. So once you click on it, a big banner will come out saying give, so that's there. And then we're doing a 40 million naira drive with Hans and Renee, where we're supporting, I think it's about 1,000 kids that want to support their education. So individuals you can go to Hans and Renee, or you can also check through our website the link to donate to the Hans and Renee 40 million naira fundraising drive.
And I think my final question is, what does a world in Nigeria look like to you where there's education equity?
It's a beautiful Nigeria, right? It's a Nigeria where, we're creating a more prosperous and equal society in terms of how resources are everywhere. People are enjoying themselves. Everyone is I don't want to say wealthy, but everyone is okay. And I'll give you an example. There's a community now there's a community program that came where the kids go and gather plastics. They sell it to make furniture for their classrooms. So, and in that community, that by being in that community, we've raised the wealth of that community. So I think if we start to address education, things like productivity issues that we have in Nigeria will disappear. We have more innovation, but we have at a mass level. It's not just, pockets here and there, but it's more at a mass level. That's what the issue is. Because there are people who are innovating and productive in Nigeria, but we're not seeing it at scale. Yeah.
Yes. So one more time, the website address for those of our viewers that would like to donate, to contribute in cash or in kind to the work that is being done by Teach for Nigeria.
Yeah, so it's teachfornigeria.org, and you're right on our website. Just scan and give some money.
Thank you very much, Ayodele Olajiga, CEO and board member at Teach for Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Remember, you can support Teach for Nigeria by going on their website, and there is an ongoing fundraising effort with Hans and Renee where you can contribute to ensure that thousands of children get a quality education here in Nigeria. We're going on a quick break. Join us very shortly. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. We're now joined by the Senior Special Assistant to the Nigerian President on Digital Strategy, Engagement and Communications, Otega Ogra, who's joining us from our Abuja studio. Otega, welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. Now, when it comes to communication, there seems to be a disconnect with the level of work that this administration under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing and the level of engagement with Nigerians. So recently, President Tinubu was telling the ministers to go and inform Nigerians about the work they are doing. Let Nigerians feel their impact. In your opinion, what can be done to improve the communication between this administration and the Nigerian populace?
So the president's instruction to the ministers was very, very instructive and timely. And I said it for a couple of reasons. One was the fact that we are speaking, but sometimes it's pretty difficult for, the information to distill down to the regular people. And why is it so? You have the media, environment. It's highly saturated now. Unlike before where you had a 24-hour news cycle, now the news cycle is every second. And we believe that a lot of the ministers, we can see the data at the back end. We can see the work they're doing. The president sees it. It gets weekly reports from almost all the ministers, and it follows through on them. Why are the Nigerian people not hearing that? And considering a situation where you have both the Ministry of Communications, the Ministry of Information, the presidential media team, and others, within the ministries, departments, and agencies, you would expect that a lot more people will hear. But don't also forget, coming into office in May 2023, there was a lot of bad blood and negativity in the air. You had quite a lot of opposition who, rather than focus, a new president has been put in place, rather than us focusing on moving the nation forward. It was all about, casting aspersion, living in a space of negativity, which Nigeria didn't need at that point in time. But as you can see, as I can see, we are gradually turning the tide. More energy has been put into communicating properly. More energy has been put into ensuring that, information gets down to the people. We're also supporting the ministers, heads of departments, heads of agencies to be able to speak properly, to the people and get their messaging out there.
Otega, I'm glad to see you're a young person who has experience in communications, in marketing, coming from the private sector. In your opinion, are you able to really break down this messaging to the different segments within the Nigerian population? For example, you have the people that are used to getting their information from radio, maybe in the local language. Then you have young people who are on Twitter, that perhaps is a Twitter space that you'll be able to engage them on. How are you able to engage the different segments of people across Nigeria? And from your experience working with the presidency, what is this president doing to ensure that everybody is carried along and not just the ministers communicating what they're doing?
Okay, as a young person in communications in the late 2000s, one of the first things I learned was that the quality of information you push out there is as important as, the timeliness or the volume of that information you're putting out. The quality and the fidelity of that information is very important. In these days of misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and all that, you see, you have to be very careful to ensure that the information is tweaked for each platform that you want to push it on. The information gets to the right people at the right time, and that there is little room for, miscommunication on the part of governments. Thankfully, you talked about radio. I would put it to you that the government still has one of the largest radio networks in Nigeria. FRCN, and the Voice of Nigeria are two platforms that, reach the most Nigerians. They're the most visible platforms. Rural areas, urban areas, the semi-urban areas, as well as syndicated programs or other platforms. And they are doing a lot in that.
Yes, Otega, I hear you clearly, but there seems to
would you give me a second, please? You asked a question, and I think it's important I answer that first. So what we're saying is, for instance, you mentioned digital. I got into government as head of digital for the presidency. And what we realize is, so far before now, everyone has tried to use their personal, pages, their personal platforms to push government business. Where does that leave us in trying to, determine what is right, what is wrong, what is true, and what is fake? So what we did in the first few months, especially on the digital space, was consolidate all forms of information onto platforms that are easily recognizable, platforms that people can always, say, oh, if they see some news somewhere, where can they verify it? Remember I said fidelity of information and the quality of information is as important. I'm listening. Go ahead.
I hear you loud and clear, and it's good to see that information is coming directly from the official handles. But there's that sense that the disconnect still exists, especially with hearing directly from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It seems like the only time we get to hear him is in response to maybe there's a protest going on or on national days. Do we have to wait for special days or for protests to happen before we hear directly that, like right now, he's out of the country, so we still have to rely on what the minister is saying, what you are saying, what comes out of the Twitter handle. But at this point, Nigerians want to feel their president. They want to hear directly from their president. What needs to be done so that we can really understand that our president is listening to us, he's feeling.
I think you can do something before we end this conversation. Yes, I agree with you. And I think you can do something before this interview is over. Have the back office staff check how many times the president has spoken directly to Nigerians. That's quite a number, considering they only got into office May 2023. That being said, the president is the president of all Nigerians. He has aides who are being paid, who have been employed to do the job of speaking. And the president comes out when it's very important for him to speak. For instance, when we're doing the food industry interventions, the president came out to speak. There was no protest then. There was nothing going on there. And he's also used the platform of his address to Nigerians, be it the State of the Nation address, the Independence Day addresses, and other addresses like that to connect directly. Now, as the media, and this is where collective responsibility comes into place, as the media taking their time to actually go back into what the president has said and hand it over to his, to people like us who are his aides and his ministers and heads of departments to follow through on those things that the president has said that he was going to do, or the president has announced that he was going to do in his, in his speeches. Very few have done that. Rather, what we have seen more often than not has been, a barrage of sometimes negative reportage, not based in, additional research and facts. We want to work together with the media. The media is the fourth estate of the realm. We can't be here without the support of the media. Yeah. Neither can the Nigerian people get good information, or the perfect kind of information that they need to make informed decisions without the media. So there's a collective responsibility here. It's one thing for the president to speak, it's another thing for the ministers to speak, it's another thing for his aides to speak, and it's another thing entirely for the media to ensure that they do their own part in ensuring that the people, the Nigerian people, who are our primary audiences, can hear and make informed decisions as to their governments and how the government is faring or performing.
Now, I want to move on to something that's affecting everybody in Nigeria. There's a virus going round, and it's not COVID-19, it's hunger. We've gone from being able to afford 3 square meals to going to 1 not, and some parents are even having to go on compulsory fasting just so their kids can eat. Now, I know the president in his address has touched on some mid to long-term solutions like introducing mechanized farming, importing machinery from abroad, even making sure that inputs are available. But in the short term, what can be done to address the food insecurity, the rising food inflation? I'm not talking about when this machinery gets here or at the end of a planting season. I'm talking about tomorrow. I'm talking about next week and next month. What is the president doing to address this food insecurity?
Thank you for asking this question. as much as I empathize with the Nigerian people, given the fact that, yes, for the first 3 quarters of this government coming in, yes, there was inflation, and the inflation was tied to, increased energy prices, which led to increased cost of food items and everything. But as it's August, the president put in place some interventions to try to drive down that food inflation. By the second quarter of this year, food inflation has started to go down. I have a couple of young people who work in different markets across, Nigeria, who we get, weekly intelligence, data intelligence from as to the cost of key food items across different markets across the country. And I can say the data does not lie. The data is there. Food prices are actually coming down across board. I think you should allow me answer your question properly, please.
Ortega, I'll have to interject.
I'm going to answer.
Okay. I'll have to interject because I go to the market, so I can give you full information.
I also go to the markets. I cook my own food.
The price of rice, the bag of rice is over 100,000. So I'm not sure where you're getting those prices from that you're saying food inflation is on the low. It has increased, and that's also because you can't take away the effect of
I hear you, but I respectfully disagree. I wonder whether you're buying your rice from one of those supermarkets.
I actually go to Lagos Fresh Food.
Hold on 1 second.
So that's a government initiative.
The FCCPC has said are doing price gouging, which is overtly increasing the price of foodstuff, to cheat the Nigerian people. The price of rice, as at 2 months ago, had gone up to about 80-something thousand naira, has come down currently to 72 to 75,000 naira, and we expect that to continue to go down at the moment. Pending when you say the commodities that have been imported by the federal government under its latest food security interventions start to take effect. But going back to your previous question, I think I need to answer that properly, and I would appreciate if you give me the opportunity to speak directly to you and the Nigerian people. Food is directly tied, to 2 different things. One, local issues, global issues. On the global issue, you have things like, energy security, global supply chain issues. Across the world, at the moment, as we speak, the world is yet to recover fully from the impacts of COVID-19. COVID-19 happens, there were global supply chain issues. Post that, you now have wars in certain places like, Russia, Ukraine, and currently in the Middle East. What that has done is a lot of foodstuff are imported from some of these regions with increased, impact on the ability to export foods to some of these countries, especially to Africa. You've seen, food prices go up across the world. Go anywhere, check the numbers, check, historical data, and you can confirm or fact check me if I'm wrong. Secondly, you also need to realize on the local front, before I even go to local front, on the international global fronts, food is also tied in some way to energy security, to energy security and energy access. And why do I say that? If the global price of, key energy components like coal, PMS, which we use in Nigeria, or heavy fuels like LPFO and the rest go up, it automatically affects the food industry. And why does it affect that? Because you say petroleum products are used to produce, your tractors, they used to run your tractors, they used to produce things like fertilizers, they used to run things like refrigeration systems. The entire value chain is tied to energy. For as long as there's a global energy imbalance, we would expect that some of these things will continue to happen. However, is the government going to sit behind and say, because things are not working well globally, we cannot mitigate the impact of that on the Nigerian people? That is the question. Now bringing us to the local front, what are the issues? On the local front, we all know what the issues are. I mean, it's been rehashed by experts over and over and over again. But what has the government done? The government is responding, to the food crisis in different ways. One, the government has introduced a lot of duty and waivers and everything for food. The government is also ensuring the states and other.
Ortega,
we'll come to that. I think, please, it's very important that you let me speak. You know, the government is doing that. Domestic production is being supported from provisions of inputs, provision of agricultural extension services, provision of things
I
like,
already said that the government was doing some of these things when I asked the question. I said, yes, the government
I'm coming
is
because
doing these things.
it's important that people know.
You know this. The issues. I want us to land on the issues because you can't talk about food security without addressing the banditry, without addressing the herdsmen farmers clash. Because no matter what the government does in providing subsidized,
you're actually making my points for me, because I was talking about the local issues and situating them and tying them directly to interventions.
So what is the government doing
First
to
and
address
foremost,
insecurity
local
in the
production.
Middle Belt?
Before we get to insecurity, production, like I said, a lot of things. I've spoken about the global parts. The local parts, what is involved in ensuring that there's food security in Nigeria. On the production part of things, I've told you, government is providing inputs, providing equipment, providing agricultural extension services.
In the short term,
building roads,
what is
rural access roads for
short
food.
Term?
On the security side, let me go to the security side. Yes, because at the end of the day, these things are not magic wands. You don't wave, a broomstick and things automatically change. There is a process to change, no matter how, stressful or painful it may be. On the security side, go look at the numbers. How many attacks have you seen on Nigerian soil from bandits, from terrorists, from insurgents in the past 1 year? That number is greatly reduced. Aside that, you can see the number of insurgents, terrorists, and kidnappers and bandits who have either been neutralized or arrested by the Nigerian armed forces. Kudos to them, our brave men and women on the field who are making things safer for our farmers to return back to their farms and people to go back their daily lives. So that is being taken care of because the president gave a marching order to the security agencies, their chiefs, and the people on the field. Go in there and make Nigeria. Internal security is a big thing for the president, make Nigeria safe. And we can see it in the numbers. We can see it in improved yields, improved agricultural yields from the last farming season. We can see it in improved number of internally displaced people going back to their farmlands, going back to their homes. That is not to say that there are no issues.
We are seeing increased prices. Like, this is great data, but for the average person on the street going to the market, I've gone to the market recently. I've seen how something I bought for, say, spaghetti now for 700, 800 has become 1,200. I've seen how the price of gari, beans have all gone up. And kudos to some state governments like Lagos, where they have an intervention of 25%. If the prices were not going higher, they probably wouldn't have put that 25% discount in selected markets. So the data shows that food prices have gone up. But my question is, in the short term, before we have the increased yield, before we do the mechanized farming, before we see the dividends of more people going back to the farm, what is the government doing to ensure that the Nigerian person can afford 3 meals in the short term?
So aside what I've said, the federal government, led by President Tinubu, is taking a leading role in ensuring that we provide all farmers' needs and all the value chain needs, not just farmers, to ensure that food gets to people. Other than that, the government is also, co-opting and speaking to other subnationals, the state governments, the local governments, to follow our lead and use their increased revenues, from the federation accounts to put it into, generating or creating more opportunities for farmers to be able to plant, to boost the food production process as a whole. Again, this thing is a process. And this show is called Rubbin Minds. I believe we're here to rub minds. I believe I'm also here to take your reports back to the government. But, in doing so, we must not lose sight of the facts that things are changing for good. We must not lose sight of the fact that whilst a lot of people are doing a lot of things to put things in perspective, to ensure that things change, to ensure that the prices of food come down, to ensure that the average man on the streets can go somewhere and get a bag of rice for 40,000. There are also people amongst us, Nigerians like you and I, who are taking opportunity of that to hoard, to increase prices arbitrarily.
There's something that
and deny regular Nigerians food stuff that they need. You cannot. Let me give you two clear examples.
I want you to tie something because sorry, Ortega, I have to interject here.
Exactly. The first example I want to give you is rice. The government started a project.
Ortega, I'm sorry, we're almost out of time, and there's something that's very important that I'd like us to address because it affects food security, and that's the rising cost of petrol, because people are still going to transport goods and services. So for example, last month we were buying petrol at what, 800 naira per liter here in Lagos, in other places 900 naira, and then within what, a week, 2 weeks, we still have the long queues, and now we're buying petrol in Abuja where you are, it's over 1,000 naira, and there's no way that that cost is not going to be transferred to the consumer. So there is a relationship between the rising cost of petrol, and Nigerians really just want some clarity. What is the solution to the endless fuel queues? Is it the removal of subsidy? Is it the deregulation of the sector? Is it even local refining, which we're now seeing in Nigeria? But what needs to happen for those prices to come down? Or should we just expect that market forces will determine it? And maybe by next month, we're spending as much as 2,000 naira per liter for petrol. We just need some clarity around these rising costs and even the availability of this product. If we are indeed refining locally, surely supply shouldn't be an issue.
You see, yes, for Mr. President and his team, we believe Nigeria is a gas country, and there's a reason why I say so. The petroleum industry has been fully deregulated since 2022. 2020. And that also saw the unbundling of NNPC, now a commercial entity, no longer a regulator, and, creating a willing buyer, willing seller, sort of situation in the markets. But we looked at this, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his team looked at this upon coming in and came up with a strategy. Why do we want to keep using, a fuel energy source that is expensive, but expensive to refine, expensive to transport, expensive to sell, when in the same country that has that same crude oil, we have more gas than is necessary for our transportation needs, for our cooking needs, for our energy needs. And the president said, see, we are going to put all our efforts into ensuring that Nigerians can get an energy source that is both cheap, accessible, and something that is also safer for them to use. Enter CNG. We started the presidential CNG initiative. What has the presidential CNG initiative done? It has ensured that people, and the price differential is very huge, to break it down to listeners out there.
Ortega, how many people can access this
CNG,
gas?
1 second, please. You need to allow me to actually speak. It's very important. You've asked very important questions.
Because
we need to give Nigerian people the opportunity to listen to their government speak.
Yes, but Nigerians don't have cars.
But you are not allowing the Nigerian people listen to this.
Generators powered by gas. Unfortunately, that's still a mid to long term solution.
So can I ask you a question, please? Would you humor me and let me ask you a question? Is this question you've asked me now, is this a Nigerian people problem, or is this, 1 second, please, let me ask my question. Now I want to ask you this question. Is it a Nigerian people question, or it's a middle class problem? The average Nigerian, 70% of Nigerians use public transportation. What has the government done for that? The government has said all public transportation, buses, taxis, everything in Nigeria are converting for free. You're converting your cars to CNG for free.
We have Keke Napep.
Yes, downforce, go and check it. All of them are being converted for free.
They are not yet converted. What will happen between now and the time of conversion? Because the average Nigerian in these urban areas.
Why? You can go into any conversion center across Nigeria. I can see that there's a knowledge gap here, but I want to tell you again and tell the Nigerian people in this limited time remaining, there are conversion centers across Nigeria. Everyone who has a commercial vehicle through either an NURTW or so, even to Uber drivers and co, can go there and get their vehicles converted immediately at no cost. For private vehicles, you have to pay a cost, and the government is even coming up with something now to ensure that you can convert now, pay later to CNG. The problem, like I said when we're talking about food, is that you have Nigerians, public transport owners who have benefited from this, who have converted their vehicles, converted their kekes, converted their taxes, but who have yet to pass on this cost savings to Nigerians. You are making cost savings of about 70 to 80% on your fuel usage. You know, one tank of fuel, you know, of CNG is almost the same as 6 tanks of fuel. In terms of
Ortega, I don't know if you have converted.
Yet,
I don't know if
you're
you've
not seeing
converted
people
your
pass this
car.
down to the people.
I don't know if you have converted
my car, and I use a car that runs on CNG.
And then
I use a car that
are running
runs on CNG. I
businesses
spend between
using
12 to
generators.
15,000 naira to fill up my tank.
So
again, the government is taking, you see.
You've educated us on the need to convert.
Go ahead.
And we hear you loud and clear, but it's still going to take time. And right now we're dealing with the effects.
It's not going to take time. It's already happening.
We're dealing with the effects of rising food costs.
It is here
rising transportation costs.
Go to pci.gov.ng and see how you can convert your car. See how you can get, you know, where your filling stations are. It's there. It's here and now. It's not a tomorrow thing. You know, we've removed, in addition to removing all the waivers and all the GCs on CNG products, now the government has extended it to even cooking gas, LPG, electric vehicles.
Ortega, we're running out of time.
Without any waivers.
Yes, Ortega,
we are running out of time, but it's important to see it facts.
Yes, thank you. And we hope that we'll have more engagement like this where you're breaking it down, you're letting us know what this government is doing.
I would also ask one question from the media. And that is, please go out there and verify and come fact check the government as to whether the CNG project has started, whether a lot of people have taken advantage of it, and whether, you know, what I'm saying here is what it is. That would be the biggest form of advertising you can do for the Nigerian people, to let them know that they do not need to rely on PMS. Petrol. They can easily convert their generators or cars.
Thank you very much. We're sadly out of time. Thank you for your contributions on Rubbin Minds. We're going to go on a quick break, and we hope that you'll come back again where we have more time to discuss many pertinent issues affecting the Nigerian people. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. We're going on a quick break. Rubbin Minds returns after this break. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Now for our entertainment segment, we're joined by actor, producer, who needs no introduction, Seun Ajayi. You've seen him grace your screens in movies, TV series, and want to catch up with you. Seun, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, you've had the opportunity of playing different roles. I'm even looking at you with the woven hair. What has been happening with you movie-wise, producing too as well? Just fill us up.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, TV and film has been the thing. I haven't been in a theater production in a while, so I'm looking forward to doing one at the end of this year. Also, I have some work coming out. Currently, I also have a film showing currently streaming on a major streamer titled Lishabi.
And Lishabi, you looked so unrecognizable. I had to look at the poster and say, is that you? And that just shows like your versatility as an actor. How have some of these roles stretched you? Not just physically, that you become unrecognizable, but also in terms of your craft as an actor.
I mean, the craft of acting for me is, you know, becoming somebody else. You know, so with every experience, with every character that I create, I try and get the person to have like something different about them. If it's a walk, some tick about the person, somehow that they talk, something that's different all the time. So, I mean, for each one, you don't really know what it is until you, like, for me, I have to find it. I have to find it outside of the script, outside of, you know, how the person looks and all. I think it's an adventure to go into someone's life every time. So it just gets me excited. And sometimes you don't even know how you've done it, but they come out different.
Are there characters that you lean more to, maybe comic characters or characters that draw on your lover boy side, or characters that are intense, where you have to go deep within? What's your favorite kind of character to play?
I think I'm more of like an intense character type person. I really like to explore this whole human experience, you know, and try as much as possible to project real people. You get what I'm saying? To project real people that, you know, people can see in their everyday life, not just like the whole fantasy of, oh, it's really bright and sparkly. Do you get what I mean? So I really want to make films that matter, characters that become iconic at the end of the day. You know, play a few real people, do some biopics, stuff like that. Yeah.
And that leads me to my next question, which focuses on your role as a producer. In terms of the kind of stories that you want to see come out of Nollywood, are you looking to see perhaps, like you said, more biopics or movies told in the local language, movies that maybe portray historical figures or tell the realities of everyday people, maybe not even to maybe pop culture? You know, as a producer, what should we be expecting from Nollywood?
I mean, I definitely know that one of the things that I would love to do, I would love to be able to do, to produce and, you know, star in, is, you know, things that elevate the palette of what the world is used to from Africa. Do you get what I'm saying? I remember seeing the Silverton Siege. It's a South African film about, you know, it was apartheid, but it was about rebels like taking charge of their own freedom in that time. And, you know, as a people, as Nigerians, we have such rich history, you know, all the way back to, you know, like the pre-colonial times, the colonial times, and even like the 60s, the 70s. There's such richness, you know, that we can explore. Like if we just explore the drama of the military in Nigeria, for instance, and do it on that elevated level. Think about the production value of things like Independence Day or A Few Good Men.
I definitely can see that.
Yes.
And I know such productions require huge budgets, but
Yes, they do.
even within I'll say fairly big budgets, we're able to create content that resonates with everyday people. So let's use Smart Money Woman Season 2, for example. Now, we talk about informing people about financial literacy. Now, if you ask people to sign up for a financial literacy class, the chances are they'll say no. But if you say, oh, come and watch this series where you present everyday life scenarios, before you know, you're being entertained, you're being informed, but you're also being educated. So tell us about your experience working on this series.
I mean, my first introduction to the material was the book. I bought the book. I saw it was Smart Money Woman, and, you know, I had been following the author, but I liked what she was talking about. And then I read the book because I didn't think that it was information only meant for women. You know, so I read the book, I really loved it, and I met her at an event, and I said to her, if you ever make a series, because that's what I feel I read. If you ever make a series, I'd like to be in it. And flash forward, one of my favorite characters is the one that I got to play. Yeah. Working on the series has been amazing. Of course, there's been backlash because the character is one that you love to hate. Soji is a character that you love to hate.
And why is that for those who are not familiar with Smart Money Woman?
Okay, so Soji is he's a hell of a husband. He's he's a man who lives off of his wife, and basically he bullies her beyond the point of like her remembering who she really is, you know. And I think that there are a lot of women who go through this. Of course, there are a lot of spouses on both sides who go through things like this. I think, you know, for what Soji did to her, this was financial abuse, and there's no other way to put it. And there are a lot of people, it's so really relatable because there are a lot of people who are going through stuff like that.
And it's your hope that when they watch it, they know how to act.
Yes, exactly. They know how to defend themselves. People who are about to get into such situations know how to defend themselves and get out. And then, of course, people who are going through it will be able to, you know, see themselves and map out a way to get out.
So for those who are not familiar with Smart Money Woman, what should they expect from season 1 and what should they expect from season 2? So some people just see it and be like, well, I don't even know what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, Sell it to them.
Okay, so I think that the Smart Money Woman is an instructional manual on just how to get out of the hole that is, getting into a lot of debt, living a lifestyle that's, above your means. It just helps you. It relays a very relatable story that you can follow these characters on their journey to freedom. Especially, I mean, the lead character, her name is Zuri. You follow her through to the place where she goes from, distress to, financial stability, and then on the road to financial freedom. For season 1, she gets to a place of stability, and then for season 2, it's really about building together. It's more like the Smart Money tribe. It's like, the circle that you have, you build wealth with together.
And you know what's instructive is that you're a man on the cast and you're speaking like this.
Yeah.
So it shows that even though the title is Smart Money Woman, it's applicable to both men
absolutely.
and to women.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a scene from season 1 where, the lead character Zuri is supposed to go out on a date, and then have her close friends go overboard with making her go shopping and go on a spending spree just to dress up for that date. And of course, she has buyer's remorse. One of the other friends who's on the other side of that financial be safe, comes and lets her have it, saying, you know what, you're being reckless once again. So all these things they're very relatable. They're things that you recognize in your own life, that sometimes your spending habits are affected by association.
Yeah. And like you said, where you're trying to impress people in the days of Instagram,
Exactly.
of posting, fake it till you make it, and nobody is addressing these things. But to see it play out in a series where you can relate and you can see where the end is when you make these wrong decisions. Now, to you, beyond this project, what are other things we can expect from you, production-wise as well as an actor?
Okay. I mean, one of the things that gave me a lot of joy this year was that I went fully into the foray of doing a lot of teaching. Yes, I've been teaching people to act, really, act for screen. I recently, over the summer, I did a teen actors boot camp. It was amazing. I want to be able to actually build capacity, for people within the industry. I've floated this platform called Dare I as an Actor, which what we do is we empower actors financially, technically, and creatively by sharing knowledge. So that's one thing, and then I'm producing a series for next year.
Oh, well, we wish you all the best with that. That's all we can take. Thank you so much, Ajayi, for being our guest, and all the best with your production.
Thank you so much.
My name is Isabella Adediji. Do join the conversation online using the hashtag Rubbin Minds. Do join us again, same place, same time next week. Have a great afternoon.